Hello everybody, welcome to another scrapbook process video. This is Jayma Malme and I'm so glad that you're here. Today we're going to be creating this single page layout from Close to My Heart's new April through June catalog. How cute is this layout? So this is a look at the cover of that new catalog. I did a unboxing catalog review or a reveal kind of video last week, and I know that a lot of you were really excited about this Hey Handsome collection, and I can see why I'm really excited about it too. It's just such a great masculine set. So the following pages kind of go into all of the products that are available with this collection, but I want to focus on this layout right here, and I'm going to go through the products that you'll need to create it. Now you can create this look with any paper that you have in your stash. Don't feel like you have to purchase this Hey Handsome collection, but I know it's going to be super popular. So I wanted to show you what you'll need to create this exactly as is. So I've got the Hey Handsome paper pack and sticker sheet here. So we're going to be using some of these stickers. We're going to be using some of these papers. Now this is a great layout if you have a lot of scraps left over, because we are going to create these squares at 2 by 2. So there's very little paper that's actually used. So if you have, if you're going to be using this collection for a lot of layouts, you might want to save this layout to the end when you have scraps left. But we're going to be using a little bit of each of these papers. The base is this paper right here, which is kind of that like gray burlap. And then what you can do is gut it out, and that gives you that probably 10 by 10-ish square in the middle, and you can cut your squares here from that, so you're not wasting any paper, and then you'll have more left over for other projects as well. This is from a zip strip. There's lots of stickers in here. We're also going to be using some of these acrylic shapes. So some of these, I think it calls for the sunglasses, which I actually think I'm going to save the sunglasses for another layout. In this one it works perfectly because he's wearing sunglasses, but my son and his friend are not, so I think I might save the sunglasses because he does wear his sunglasses a lot, and I'll replace it with one of these other pieces. The top hat, that's so funny. The tie, so I have plans for the tie because my son loves to wear his tie. There's this arrow, so lots of pieces that we can pull from here. There's the bow tie. We're also going to create some embellishments, and this piece right here is from the stamp set. And then we're going to do some stamping on some of these squares as well. So we're going to use the Hey Handsome scrapbooking stamp set, and a lot of the little embellishments come from here as well. So we'll get a lot of use out of that. And then the ink colors that I'm going to use are Harbour, Paprika, Black. I'm using Archival black just because I like how vivid of a black it is. You could just use regular black. And Pine. Now if you don't have all of these colors, just substitute for one of them, because some of these, like the Paprika, you're only using it for a little star right here. So you can totally substitute that if you want, and any of the other colors. So let's go ahead and just dive in. I'm going to start out by gutting my paper, and I've got it over to the 1 inch. So I've got my white piece cut to 11.5 squared. So I'm going to give myself an inch here, and I'm going to just start at the 1 inch from the top up here. So it's actually going to be 11 inches here. I know I have my paper trimmer. I use it upside down. This is just how I prefer it. And then we have this inner piece to use for some of our 2-inch circles. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut a whole strip at 2 inches. We'll set that aside. And we will cut, I know I'm going to need 2 of this pattern. And then let's look back here. So this is actually the bulk paper. The actual paper that comes in the paper pack has this on the other side, but as a maker I was able to get this as a bulk pack, which has this pattern on the side. So I'm going to only need 1 of those. So I've got my 2 gray burlap, and I'm going to cut 1 of these. It's not in exactly the same place, but that's okay. Actually, I think I like it right here better. So we'll use that. And then I'll cut the rest of them off screen, but I just want to show you there's a lot of cardstock. So there's black cardstock. I forgot to show you, if you get the cardstock pack, or if you have these colors of cardstock, then you'll need black, Harbour, pine, there's another little black, and then this is Mink and this is Mink. This seems a little darker than Mink. I think this might be rosemary, because you can see rosemary's in this pack. I don't have rosemary out, and it doesn't come in the cardstock pack, so I'm actually just going to substitute that for Mink. And this is stamped, so you can see that stamp on this set actually matches it. So they created their own patterned paper, a little square with a stamp. So I'm going to cut Mink for all 3 of these. So I'll go ahead and get all my papers cut, and then we'll come back. Okay, now I've got that done. I'm actually going to scoot these all off, because before I start arranging, I want to get my base page down. So I did end up gutting this, as you saw, and I am just going to put a little bit of adhesive in each of the corners, and this will easily come off later. And I'm going to line it up here on my Versamat, because I have a feeling there's a lot of lining up I'm going to want to do with all those squares. So just make sure that that's lined up there. And then we'll go ahead and add our white piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and add adhesive around the very edge. And then since this is cut to 11.5, I know I need it 1/4 inch over and 1/4 inch down. And if you really wanted to be accurate, you could get out a T-square ruler, but I typically like to just kind of eyeball it. It's kind of hard for me to see without getting my head in the way. I think I'm a little high, but that's okay. All right, so then we're going to start adding our little squares in. Now this is the one, actually this one is going to have this stamp here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to pull out another Versamat here. I'll just put it right on top. Add that stamp here. I could do all my stamping. I think I might stamp this one too while I'm at it. But then the other stamps, like these little stars, they need to go on after I'm done with the layout. So I'll get my die cut out that I'm going to need. There's 3 die cuts if you get the set that has the coordinating die cuts. So, oh, actually we're going to need the camera for here too. So we'll need the camera and this title and then this pattern. So here's my blocks. My son stole a bunch of my blocks to work on some thank you cards, and they're still over with his stuff with all of his stamps on them. So some of these are not quite the right size, but we'll make it work. So we'll get that one on there. I'm going to put this little camera. He has all my small blocks, so we'll just put the camera on here, and then the title on this really big one. Sometimes the first time you peel them off, it can be kind of hard, but just make sure you're careful, because you don't want them to rip. This one, the shape doesn't lend itself to be ripped too easily, but some of those more intricate stamps really can rip easily that first time peeling them off. So since I haven't used these stamps yet, I'm going to season them, and I'm just doing that on my hand like this. And that helps to kind of get all the manufacturing stuff off of them that is still there. And then we'll do a couple of test stamps too, especially on these more solid stamps. So we got that seasoned. And then every stamp set comes with this little foam piece too, which is helpful to put under your paper when you're stamping to give it some cush. But that's also why I'm using my Versamat here. So the Versamat and the foam kind of do the same thing. So we're going to need this one for the camera, and I'm going to get some scrap paper. I forgot to mention you're going to need Mink ink. So that's just this little camera that we're doing tone on tone. So let's stamp that here. Hold it down for just a second to let it soak in. I like to kind of rub it on my ink pad too. Do it one more time. Now it's supposed to have that like distressed look. So we're going to go ahead, and the way they have it lined up is the top corners are pretty much to as high as they can go on this piece. So without getting my head in the way, let me try and get that lined up. Let that soak in a moment. And lift up. Okay, so that's going to be one of our pieces. All right, so here's my pine, and I'm actually going to put my scrap paper under there. And we'll just kind of, I'm going to have it go off the edge a little. This stamp isn't as solid, so I wasn't as concerned about testing it on the scrap paper first. Usually it's the more solid stamps that you have a little more trouble with. Those just line up perfectly. You know what? This kind of reminds me of the Oregon O for the University of Oregon. For those of you who don't know, my husband used to work there. So we have a lot of Oregon gear in our photos. All right, so now you have your custom patterned paper for this square. Okay, so I've got everything laid out but not glued down now. And so what I've noticed is with the 2-inch squares, it fits, but even when they're all lined up close to each other, the top or bottom is going to have to be cropped just a little bit. So you may want to try like a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch smaller. So like 1 15/16 or 1 7/8 inch squares, or just know that you're going to have to chop off the top. So now I wish I hadn't glued this white piece down. I'm probably going to lift it up and then crop that off. But the other thing is that I've got a 4x6 that I cropped from the top because I had a lot of empty space up here. And then of course I have my extra photo here. And I do believe that the original, it looks like it's probably a 5x7. So I'm going to add a little bit more of those squares to kind of fill in. And then another thing I want to do is this paprika, which I forgot to mention the paprika cardstock in the beginning. It was just a little too bold for me. I'm not the hugest fan of paprika. I don't want it so bold in my face, so I'm going to use this more toned down pattern. And I did cut this so that I could see the words that I wanted to. So this says friend, rough, and then this said dashing. It got cut off a little bit, handsome, and I really liked that for these photos. And then this is designed to go right here, and then there will be other embellishments here. But what I need to do is kind of build out a little bit so there's not such a big gap. So I'm thinking that this pattern again, maybe that could fit up here, or maybe this one can go down here. I do want this to kind of tuck in right here to my photo because I do still have a bunch of empty space, and I kind of wanted to cover up this light switch here. So if I just tuck it there, then I can tuck this under here like that, and then maybe have this. I don't think I need another one up there actually. Maybe I'll stick this one here. Actually, I have this other half from here that can go here. I can add some embellishments down here that are in the design anyway. I was thinking I wanted this maybe to kind of tuck under his little armpit there, but I think I want it up further. So we'll see when I play with the embellishments how that turns out. I may not need this striped piece. Or maybe I want that one here. So this one has a lot of white in the background. I might do that and I'll kind of turn it. So this one has the stripes going up and down, and that would have required me to do some finagling to my paper. I just wanted to cut the squares out of my paper. So instead of the squares going up and down, they're just going to go to each side like that, and that's totally fine. Didn't want to have to fuss with that. So I think this is going to work. We'll have a little embellishment tucked in there. I'm going to go ahead and glue all of this down. I was considering inking around the edges, but you know, I don't think I'm going to mess with that. I think I'm just going to leave it like this. We're going to have a lot going on, and I think that the inking would look good, but I kind of just don't feel like doing that right now, to be honest. So we're just going to forge ahead. We're going to glue this down and I'll be back. Here's what I ended up trimming off from those top triangles. It's probably about 1/4 of an inch. And I took this paper crafting tool to lift up that paper that I already had glued down, and then I just used my scissors to trim those off. I would say, since there's about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a tiny bit more, that if you trim each square down by a 1/16 of an inch, you're probably right around the same place. But you don't want to go too short either, so you might want to just stick with the 2-inch pieces. But let me know if you figure out the exact measurement. So these paprika star pieces are from one of the zip strips on the patterned paper, and I'm using my fingernail just to kind of rough up the edges. I thought if I use my distress tool or scissors, since that strip is long and skinny, it might kind of bend the paper. So I just decided to do it this way, and I did use my distress tool later on for another piece. Now I'm pulling out those acrylic shapes, and I'm placing them mostly where the original layout showed. Here's that little tag, and I'm taking the stick off by putting it on my anti-static powder tool, and that gives a little coating on the back to take the stick away, and then I can later go in and use glue or tape to glue it down, but I wanted to be able to move these pieces around. I pulled in this little bike that was about right here on the original layout, but it doesn't work as well for my layout, so it's going to move around quite a bit on the layout, and eventually it doesn't even make it on the final page. I'm pulling in this So Handsome title, so you can see the bike isn't really working with that, so I moved it out of the way, and I'm going to line up this title right here, which also ends up moving around quite a bit eventually. And I'm going to keep adding these acrylic pieces where they are called for in that original layout. I did end up adding another little star up in the top right, which was not called for, and it kind of threw off the balance of those acrylic shapes. So I'm going to end up removing those stars that are more in the middle later on. So I'm thinking I might put the bike up there where those stars are, thinking about removing that little zip strip. Something seemed a little bit off with that zip strip, so I'm going to try making it a little bit shorter, and I do like that a little bit better. So I'm adding now this little bow tie to this embellishment cluster here, just kind of tucked off to the side of this awesome sticker. That awesome sticker worked out so well for these photos. So this is my son and our neighbor, which was his good friend, and their whole family was really good friends of ours, and so their kids were at our house a lot. So I really wanted to use this sticker, and I mentioned this in my catalog walkthrough that I love this sticker and I wanted to make it work for me since I only have one son. Originally it said, "There are these boys who stole my heart, they call me mom." So it worked out that I could just trim off the bottom, and now it says, "There are these boys who stole my heart," which totally works for Knox and Tyler. And so to make that frame consistent, I just trimmed it off of the sticker and mounted it onto black cardstock. And then the only thing I have to figure out is that comma that's after the heart. And so I'm going to strategically place a little star over the corner, and you're never going to know that it was there. I love these photos of Knox and Tyler because it's just so characteristic of them. I think my son was 4 in these photos, and Knox is a couple of years older than him. So my son had all of these tattoos left over from a birthday party, and he didn't know how to put them on by himself. So of course Knox helped him. Knox loved helping him get into mischief sometimes, but they were just so darn cute. And so they came downstairs so proud of themselves, and of course had to show off for the camera. And I had to include that smaller photo because you can see how Tyler is looking at Knox, that little face. He looked up to him so much. He loved him so much. And now we live many states apart and they miss each other. And so this is just really sweet to capture this moment here in this scrapbook page. There were all of these stickers that had perfect words too. So the title says "So Handsome," and I'm going to keep messing with this title like I mentioned, but I added these stickers that say funny, powerful, tough, strong. So the title is going to read "So Handsome, Funny, Powerful, Tough, Strong," and I just thought that it was perfect for these photos. So I'm going to just keep getting these all perfectly situated. So the sticker that says strong was just white and it blended into the background. So you saw that I just added a Harbour mat and I used that patterned paper that's plaid because I just had a scrap of it left over from cutting the squares, and so that worked out perfectly. Now I'm thinking I like this right here, kind of broken up on 2 lines, and I love how that arrow is helping to separate the so and handsome, and so now I think the spacing works out perfectly. Now I'm just using my fingers to get that tape off that we put on the back of that layout. You could also use the rub and remove eraser. And I've learned my lesson after so many times of making a mess with my shimmer brushes, especially the black, that I put my all-purpose mat down so I don't get splatters on my work surface. And I covered my photo with the scrap paper, and I'm just going to add just a few little splatters. I love the shimmer brushes because they come in all different colors and have just a hint of shimmer, so it adds a little bit of color and a little bit of shimmer, and they are just lovely. If you don't have any shimmer brushes yet, I recommend starting with the clear because you can color it onto anything to add a little bit of shimmer, or mix it with some ink onto your all-purpose mat, which I've shown before, to create your own color. And the second most often used is the black for me, and I also use the charcoal a lot, and then probably followed by the sapphire. So now I'm adding a few stamped stars here because the acrylic stars, like I mentioned, were just a little bit too much. So I added just tone-on-tone stamping on that pine colored square. You could use all patterned paper for these squares if you wanted. I kind of liked the mix of the cardstock, and I liked creating my own patterns with the stamps. And if you do need some cardstock, there is a cardstock sale going on this month. Now, the pack of cardstock that goes with Hey Handsome is not on sale, but there are individual packs. So if you get the 24 packs of cardstock, or there's color family packs on sale, or there's a big mega pack that has every single color in a bundle that's 30% off. So I'll leave that link below if you do need cardstock. I added a little bit of journaling here on the side of the photo, and on the tag I just put their name and year, and there's so many cute details, so you can't even see that comma after the heart there. So here's a look at the original inspiration and then my variation. So very subtle changes, and I just made it work for my photos. If you're interested in this collection, I have everything I used linked below. And if you missed my unboxing video, be sure to check that out right here. There's also a giveaway that ends on Friday. Thanks for watching!